Hello everyone, welcome to accounting. This is accounting 210, and then in this video we will talk about chapter 4, ABC costing. So let's look at your textbook. It's textbook exercise 4-25A. I'm not going to read too much detail, but basically the question tells you the firm. They are thinking about using ABC costing because of the manufacturing overhead, the allocation distortion. We talk about those things in class. They think the traditional, right? They think about the traditional plant-wide overhead rate was not accurate. It just uses one rate and based on direct labor hours, right? So it's based on direct labor hours. So put that in your mind, because you will have a question. I just put it here, or we can highlight it there later. But you know, just the rate we said it's based on your estimated manufacturing overhead and then divided by your estimated direct labor hours. So that's the information there. And then the question also told you all of this activity. It told you the allocation base. It even calculated the rate for you. So we said ABC costing is the activity-based costing. So our cost is based on these activities. So we should analyze each activity and then allocate our costs. Remember, it's when we talk about allocating, it's only for our manufacturing overhead. For direct labor, direct material, you never allocate, you just treat them directly and put them in the working process. Okay, so it also gives you this information. Is said that you will produce 1,000 units. In this question, basically, it's just your units are the wheels. So we based on you have 1,000 units for two different models, right? You have standard, you have the deluxe. So you have these two different models. So let's look at the question. And then you think about you are producing 1,000 for each one, each type. Compute the total budgeted manufacturing overhead. So how do we get our total manufacturing overhead? We said the manufacturing, the estimated is based on our activity, right? So it's based on our activity. So we go to our the first part, we think about, so for each activity you have this allocation, and then this is how much you will incur. So let's do the numbers together. Okay, the first one, so we did we have the two parts, right? And then we said we based on each activity. So I put it here. So we have this, sorry, you cannot see. We have these 4 activities. We have these 4 activities. Okay, so basically you have this activity. Okay, so you have the handling, I'm sorry, I'm writing, you have the setup, you have the insertion, and then you have the finishing. So you analyze that the company has these 4 activities. And then the rate is already calculated for you, 4.5 or whatever. So we go to our 2 models, the S and the D. So the first one said parts per wheel. So for each wheel, for each unit, we have 4 parts for the basic. We have 6 parts for the advanced. So when we have this part, right? When we have this part, look at your activity cost allocation is based on part. This one is also based on part. So you have this part, right? And then you have 2 activity is based on the part. 2 activity based on the part. So the first one is material handling. When you have one part, when you have one wheel, you have 4 parts, and then whenever you have one part, you have to allocate $4.5 to the manufacturing overhead. Okay, so we have this standard, we have this deluxes, and then this one is 4 parts. This one is 6 parts for each wheel. So your total, you have these 2 models. This one have 4 parts. This one has 6 parts. So your total has 10 parts, right, for one wheel. And then we totally have 1,000. We have 1,000 wheel. So then we will have 10,000 parts, right? So we have 10,000 parts. We have 10,000 parts. And then handling is $4.5 per part. So for handling, so that's just my kind of an analysis. You don't need to put this. I think you don't have this one in the mark even. For handling, one part is $4.5. Is $4.5, and we have 10,000 parts. So that gives us $45 for this activity. Remember, we also have the other activity based on parts, right? Insertion parts. So if you have one part, you have to pay $31 for this activity. Remember, we total have 10,000 parts. So that will be 31 times 10,000 gives you 310,000 for this activity, for this one unit and each model. Okay, so that is the part. And then look at the second one. It said per setup, right? So you also have a setup. So this is based on the setup. And then setup is related with your machine setup. Is related with your machine setup. Okay, so this is based on 1,000 wheels. That's perfect for us. 1,000 wheel. That for standard, you need to set up 20 times. For deluxes, you need to set up also 20 times. So total, you have to set up 20 plus 20, right? And then total, you have to set up 20 plus 20 times. That is 40 times. And then each time is $325. So that gives you the total setup. Allocated manufacturing overhead has to be 13,000. Has to be 13,000. And then we take care of this material handling, machine setup, insertion, and finishing is our last activity. It's based on finishing. It's based on finishing direct labor hours. Okay, sorry, I'll highlight this part too. So this is based on the parts, right? This is based on number of setup. And last one is based on finishing direct labor hours. Finishing direct labor hours, right? So this is your finishing direct labor hours. And then we said for finishing direct labor hour is $50 per hour. And then we need for one wheel, we need one finishing direct labor for basic, we need 3 finishing direct labor for the advanced. So your total will need 1 hour plus your 3 hour time hour 1,000 units, right? Time hour 1,000 units. Then we said that you total need 4,000 finishing direct labor hour, and then each one hour is $51. So that will give you total 204,000 for your last activity of finishing. So if you add those 4 items, you should get your estimated manufacturing overhead, which is 572,000. So that is our estimated. We also call it a budgeted manufacturing overhead or indirect costs, production costs. So that actually goes to our plant-wide allocation rate of the numerator. Okay, we just put that there. We said, oh, we finished the first part of the question. Second question said, compute the manufacturing overhead cost per wheel of each model using ABC costing. So it's basically the same, but instead of calculating the 1,000 units for each one, you need to get your per wheel. So you need to get your per wheel of each model. So this is the only part that is different, but everything else, they are very similar. So we said we still do these 4 parts. It's a handling, it's a setup, it's insertion, and then it's a finishing. Now you have to separate those 2 models. One is basic, one is advanced. So now you think about per unit, right? So you think about per unit instead of 1,000 units. Okay, do it one more time. Now it should be straightforward. We look at the standard, the basic first. It needs 4 parts for 1 unit. Then, so we said you have, based on the part, based on number of parts, you have 2 activities. One is handling, one is insertion. So handling, you need 4 parts. You need 4 parts. And then each part is $4.5, right? 4.5 times your 4. And then for the insertion is $31 times your 4. So that gives you, I didn't calculate. So this we take care of the first part. Second is setup. Setup is set up 1,000 wheels. Set up 1,000 wheels. Then, but you only need 20. You need 20 setup for 1,000 wheels, right? So you need 20 setup for 1,000. So how many setups you need for 1 unit? So we only need 20 divided by 1,000 units. So that gives you 0.02 time of setup for 1 unit. Because you need, for 1,000 units, you need to set up 20 times. But this one asking you about per unit. So we need to divide it by this 1,000. And then each time the setup cost is 325. So that gives you each unit. And the last one is finishing direct labor. So you need, per unit, you need 1 hour, and then 1 hour is $51. So sorry, if you don't mind, just, you can skip, you can pause it, and or you can do whatever, just to calculate very quickly. Sorry for that. Okay, so that gives you 4.5 times, gives you 18 times 325, gives me 6.5, or is okay. So you need $199.5 manufacturing overhead for your standard that model. Okay, so we do the same thing for the second model. So for the handling, it's 6 parts per wheel, and then you need 4.5 for each part. Also, you need 6 parts, then you need to also think about the insertion of the parts. So it's 31 plus your 6 parts. And then also, then you do the setup, you do the same, right? So it's also for 1,000 wheels, you set up 20 times. For each time, for each one, you divide it by 1,000 units, and then it's 325 times your that 1 unit. How many times for the setup? Lastly, is your finishing labor. You need 3 hours, and then each hour is $51. So if you do this, the calculation, you will find out the second model, the advanced, need $372.5 of the manufacturing overhead for each unit. Okay, so we are done for the second part. So this is your first part for your total manufacturing cost. This is for each unit for your two models. And then now we look at the third part. Sorry, I just put on the same page. I'm not going to use another page. So we can put everything together here. Last question asking you about your traditional overhead rate. Okay, traditional overhead rate. Use these three to determine the manufacturing overhead cost per view under the traditional. Okay, so we need to get the traditional rate, and then we need to get the manufacturing overhead allocation using that rate. We said that the rate is based on direct labor hours, right? We said the rate is based on direct labor hours. Okay, so our total estimated manufacturing cost is this much. How about our denominator? How many direct labor hours that are used that should be estimated? The question didn't tell us like is estimation or the actual. I think it's not accurate. But the only time you see the direct labor is from this information, so we just take it as our budgeted and also as our actual when we allocate. Okay, so we have a direct labor hour per wheel 2.7 for the first model and then 3.8 for the second model. This is per wheel. We need 1,000 units for each model, right? So what is our estimated direct labor hours? We said it will be 2.7 times 1,000 plus 3.8 times 1,000 direct labor hours. So that gives us 6,500 direct labor hours for the two models and then 1,000 units for each model. So we got our allocation base. We got our estimated manufacturing overhead. So our rate will be 572,000 divided by 6,500 direct labor hours. That gives you $88 per direct labor hour. So that is the rate we want to use it to allocate our manufacturing overhead for each model. And then we said for the first model, as I say, the question is not well written. We don't really know it's the actual is the estimated. So we said when we get the rate, we always use the estimated. But when we allocate, we use the actual. One more time, the question didn't tell us, but this is the only time we can find the relationship information about direct labor. So we use this as our estimated and also as our actual. Sorry, in your exam, it will be better written than this one. And then we said, okay, so for our first model, rate is $88 direct labor hour, and we had 2.7 direct labor hour, right? So we said for the first one, rate is 88, and then we use a 2.7 direct labor hour. So our allocation has to be $237.6 for each unit of our first model. So similarly for our second model, rate is 88, still rate is 88, sorry. And then we time the direct labor hour for our second model is 3.8 hour, and that gives us $334.4 as our allocated manufacturing overhead. Why we need to calculate? Because then we can find out the more accurate manufacturing overhead allocation based on our ABC costing is this much for the first model, but using our traditional plant-wide is less than 200. So you can see the difference. This is called manufacturing overhead allocation distortion. So it means that traditional is not accurate, and then ABC is more accurate. It's like almost $40 more accurate. So similarly for our second model, we said using traditional is 334, but using our ABC costing, it's about 37.2. So it's also a difference, right? But what I'm trying to test, what I'm trying to tell you actually, so let me do this. If you want to do your homework, you are down here, but I want to do a quick test. Give me just 1 second, I think. Okay, what I'm trying to do, we said manufacturing overhead is just an allocation. So you can find out your first model, right? Your first model, this one, your traditional one is $38.1 over allocated. Based on traditional one, you allocated the $38.1 more. But for the second product, your traditional is $38.1 less allocated. What I'm trying to say is you over allocated the first product, you under allocated your second product at the same amount, so your total difference is 0, because as I said, it's just an allocation. Remember we talked about the pizza, right? You cut more to this product, then you will have less for the second product. But your total, you add those two, and then you add those two, the total number will be the same. So how much you over allocate will be how much you under allocate for the other product. All I'm trying to say, remember the example we did in class, this is just allocation. Your actual will be exactly the same. You over allocate one product, you will under allocate the other product at the same amount. Okay, sorry, I think I talked too much. I hope you can feel better after watching the video, or you can practice by yourself. Let me know if you have any question. We have talked about a lot about manufacturing overhead allocation. It's really not easy to understand and then to get the point. So keep practicing and then email me or go to my office. We are almost done with the manufacturing overhead allocation. So keep working hard, and then we can relax a little bit. Thank you. Bye.